alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, and with me today is a fabulous guest, Nathan Pedde. Welcome to the show, Nathan.
Hi, how's it going?
Oh, it's going all right. How about you?
Simple conversation.
Feels like we just did this. We're real simpletons here. No. So, Nathan, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and the sort of stuff you write.
I am a Canadian.
It's the central part of his identity.
Central part. Just so you know.
You're in good company. A lot of Canadians on the show.
I apologize a lot. I write science fiction and fantasy. With the aim, I lean more on the science fiction side of things.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of me, where I do both, but especially right now, I'm leaning really heavily on fantasy compared to sci-fi.
Understandable.
Yeah, I mean, it's just my preference there. So, yeah, what's your latest book you got? You just have a book coming out. Just this week.
It is Enlisted, the book one of the Agent O'Neill saga.
Okay. So, it's a saga about an agent named O'Neill, I assume.
Yeah, Des O'Neill.
Okay. What sort of stuff does this guy get up to?
Des is 16 years old, and he's in high school. He's living on a space station orbiting Jupiter. In the middle of the war to end all wars. Again.
Sorry.
Well, 500 years in the future, there's been many.
Exactly, yeah.
And so his biggest concern at the moment is to not get drafted into the Marines as soon as he graduates high school.
Okay.
Instead, he gets drafted into the station security intelligence. Sorry, tongue-tied.
That's okay. It's okay. Everyone gets that way sometimes.
As there is a saboteur trying to blow up the station.
So, I mean, how big is the station? Are we talking like a Babylon 5 type scenario, or?
It is. The station is set up so that the people live. It's a cylinder, and the people live on the inside. And so, if you look up, you see the other side of the station. And there's houses and air.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So there's houses and buildings and air, almost like it mimics a planet.
Okay.
It is you could call it a megalith structure.
Just rolled up in a tube, basically. It's like a planetary
exactly.
Tube. Cool. That's a pretty classic kind of space structure, yeah.
It is. It's, I'll happily say that, I stole it from anime.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like a lot of anime, actually, but especially Gundam, right? I think that's the one.
Yes. Yeah. That was... You caught me there.
Hey, but it's because it's actually a fairly plausible type of structure. It was also in Schlock Mercenary. There was one of the later Schlock Mercenary parts, Longstorm of the Apocalypse had that. I guess it's not later anymore. Gosh, it was later when I read it.
The big thing with the station is that it's cheap on the gravity, because all they have to do is make it spin.
Yeah. And
it's wide enough. It's 75 kilometers in diameter. And so it's big enough that it's a comfortable spin that you don't notice a big curve. Not like the curve on 2001 Space Odyssey,
right,
where the curve was very short, almost unrealistically short.
Okay.
So this one is, you don't really notice that there's a curve until you look up.
Yeah, so instead of having clouds in the sky, you've got some clouds, who knows, but you got the other side of the station's right over there.
Exactly. And then down the middle of the station is what I call the Spindle.
Okay.
And it's the central control hub where there is artificial gravity because there's no spin to that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's where they, that's where they control the station to make it rain, make it turn the lights on, turn the lights off. That type of stuff.
Okay, so we're talking, it's kind of like a big city or megalopolis kind of structure. the kind of the amount of people who live here too, right? Like
exactly.
Okay.
So it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a pretty fertile environment, but also blowing up a whole city. That's a pretty supervillain move. I mean, an old space station. Got to be a little easier with a space station, though. I'd imagine you just pull the cork and everything falls out.
That's pretty much what the guy's trying to do. He's disabling their defensive network so the enemy can launch missiles and blow up the station.
Okay. So this is this is book 1, of course. So we have a feeling that at least O'Neill isn't going to get blown up in this. But yeah, so what? Not for
the lack of the trying for the enemy.
Absolutely. I'm sorry not to spoil the book, but it's book 1 of a saga.
Yes.
I don't think that's a big spoiler. But so what do you? Where's this series going after this? Or what kind of stuff is O'Neill going to have to deal with? As Des O'Neill, I suppose.
It is Des O'Neill.
Yeah, is he going to have to deal with as he negotiates and tries to take this guy down? I mean, that's a couple questions right there.
Well, the saboteur is just a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
Spoilers, just a little small one that's probably easily guessed on quite quickly. But the book 1, 2, and 3 will be coming. 2 and 3 will be coming up for pre-order within the next couple weeks, and those books deal with the greater. They stay in the station as the enemy tries a couple more times to destroy it or take it over, and things get complicated.
Cool. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say Monster of the Week, but it's like, because it's the same basic opponent every time. It's the same force, but it's more like and this is the scheme that we're gonna have to foil this week, kind of thing. This book. Or I don't know. Is that how it goes, or am I totally off?
There is a greater overarching story to it, and then at the end of book 3, the war ends, but that doesn't end the story for Des. There's a lot of unanswered questions for him that he needs to figure out.
Okay.
Like he is an orphan, and so what happened to his parents is a mystery to him. So there's that question that's going to be explored in further books. And try not to give too many spoilers away.
Yeah. We don't. No spoilers necessary.
And it goes from a hot shooting war to almost a cold war.
Okay.
In a way, so there's going to be more missions for him to do.
Cool. So what's your writing process like for these books? I mean, how did you approach writing this series?
This series here I have been working on for a few years now. And which is scary. It took me that long. But I write every day with a minimum word count. And I am ashamed to say I am no longer a pantser. I am a plotter. I outline stuff.
Well, there you go. I mean, different strokes for different folks, right?
Yep. As I learned to write cleaner and better and more interesting stuff, I discovered that I find comfort in having some type of plan of where I'm going with the story.
Well, you always need a plan, even if you are a discovery writer. That's my opinion, but because you either have one subconsciously or you need one consciously. It's kind of the difference, I would say.
Exactly. And this is just, I do write a lot of different stories, and so I try and write things down so I remember them later.
To help you keep them straight, right?
Exactly.
That makes sense. Yeah, I have that same issue. I mean, that's why whenever I have a big idea, I write that one down. But then usually when I'm actually writing the book, because I discovery write basically everything as far as the actual innards of the book, I don't usually make that many notes. I'm trying to make fewer notes because they tend to just be procrastination for me. But oh well.
I do this book here is in my, I call it Beyond Terra Continuum.
Okay.
It is my overarching universe that the story resides in. And so I do make a lot of notes as I'm writing when it comes to the world.
Okay, cool. So
because there's
sorry, go on.
There's other stories. None of them are published yet. They will be. that deal with different aspects of the world. Some of them are in the past, some of them are in the future. And so I have more stories in this world. Some of them, not all of them with Des, some of them with some of his relatives, some of them with complete strangers.
Okay. So you got kind of this bigger setting. And I have a soft spot for that kind of thing as well. I really do like, when I write at least, I mean, I like these enormous worlds, and I like to be able to have, in this corner, there's other things that can happen kind of thing. But exactly. And in history, when you have a whole history of like a space opera setting, basically, or science fiction setting, that's got to get pretty huge pretty fast, right? Even 2 eras, kind of like the Jedi, the expanded universe of Star Wars is kind of like that, where it's like, okay, so you got the New Republic, you got the Old Republic, and you've got the Revolution or the Civil War, basically.
Yes.
And these are big whole eras. Like that was like the Star Wars RPG, I guess is what I was thinking about there. But anyway,
KOTOR.
Yeah, basically KOTOR. You go back far enough, you get KOTOR, and it looks very much like the other games too, the movies. But whatever.
Exactly. So there is a lot of other stories. There is the entire question of how did Earthlings get off this single rock.
Yeah.
There's a story, right there for it. The entire Earth Mars, is a standard science fiction trope that I enjoy. How Earth and Mars never get along. And I'm going to play with that.
Okay.
Because why not? There's other stories there. And the Des is not part of either Earth or Mars. He is a Jovian. There is entire country built out along the Galilean moons.
Neat. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And the entire world is me just asking questions of what would things look like 500 years from now? Yeah. That is a very hard question because it can go any other way.
Or put another way, it's kind of an easy question because there's so many possibilities. It's hard to be precisely wrong about everything.
Exactly. So I've made certain leaps, judging based on how far we've advanced in 70 years since the end of World War II. Mm. And I went and I looked at that leaps from analog computers in the 60s to, your computer in your phone is way better than anything they had before.
Yeah. Not enough processing power to land a man on the moon, right? In the cell phone, in a lot of cases at least.
Oh, exactly. My 486 that I had when I was a kid had more computing power.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. So using that exponential growth, I've made some assumptions, like they figured out how to terraform Mars.
Okay.
The Galilean moons are terraformed because they figured it out. It's 500 years.
Yeah.
They figured out how to build this megalith structure that houses thousands of people.
Yeah. No, and I have a soft spot for megastructures too. They're pretty sweet. The idea of the giant, almost like moon or planet-sized structure to some degree, in some cases.
Exactly.
Yeah, the Dyson sphere, the solar system-sized structure. Yikes.
Yeah, I haven't gone that far yet.
Yeah, that's a little bit like kind of gets rid of some of the lesser stuff. Once you make it a Dyson sphere or a ring world, you're kind of taking away the solar system to make that thing.
Exactly. One thing I don't have is in the story there is no FTL yet.
Okay.
They haven't figured that part out. And there's a story right there. It's how do they figure that out?
Yeah. No, FTL is one of those things that is almost, at least by our current science, would seem like hand wavy. It has to be a hand wave of some kind almost at this point, right?
Pretty much. There's a couple theories, but none of them that are proving true.
And for those who are not initiated, I think most of us are, but faster than light travel, FTL.
Yes.
Yeah.
I made an assumption that people listening to to this podcast would know what FTL is.
It just occurred to me that maybe not everyone does, but anyway, there we go. Now they've all been initiated, if they weren't already. So yeah, so it's one of those things that how hard is the science in this story? Do you think is the speculative fiction element stronger than the this is what we actually think would work element? You know, like
I do more of I call it a medium hard.
okay,
If you look at science fiction as a steak, it's not rare, it's not well done, it's in the middle, it's between the two.
okay.
Some things like how you would navigate through the solar system, I try and keep true.
Mm-hmm.
Space battles, you can't just 180 and turn around.
Right.
Because you're
inertia.
Even if you think you're stopped, there is no stopping in space. You're still moving somewhere somehow, and that affects your planning. If you're in orbit around a planet, it's a fun fact. The ISS and the moon go the same speed, but the moon goes a lot farther, so it takes a lot longer.
Oh, cool. I
right?
didn't know, that makes sense though, because they're both in the Earth's gravity well. They're both falling basically.
Exactly.
And, getting pulled in by the Earth.
Exactly, and so if you're trying to chase somebody and you're both doing an orbit, you're not going to catch them.
Right.
But then that's where I use a little more hard sci-fi, but then I go with a little more softer. I have Mars terraformed. Right now,
so you kind of mixed a little bit of a mixture there. Yeah.
Exactly. People don't think Mars is terraformable. They think there's no way. And you mentioned the Galilean moons like Europa being terraformed. They say, no, it's not going to happen. It's too cold. And I go, well, they figured it out.
Yeah, just gonna jump through that. Yeah, and say, okay, I want these moons to be terraformed. Therefore, we're going to say they figured it out for this purposes of this story. It's also not. And it's been 500 years. Lots is going to change in even 100 years.
Exactly, and so I go. There's the basic problems of how do they do it, and I have a couple tools to help me out with that. One of them being immediately it's a computer game. It's called Universe Simulator or something like that.
Okay.
And
I haven't heard of that one.
It allows. It takes the solar system and allows you to play with it. And so you can add an atmosphere to Europa and see what happens. Can you get Europa to being the right temperature? And for a book, that's close enough for me. Yeah, Universe Sandbox. Sorry.
Okay, interesting.
And so I got it because I'm plotting out another sci-fi book, and I was trying to figure out if the two stars, like Alpha Centauri, could have a planet.
Yeah, I mean, what did you figure out there? What do you think it figure?
Yeah, I figured out the stars have to be very far apart. You can't just have like Jupiter. Like if Jupiter was a star, it would have just destroyed everything else.
Yeah.
But if the other star was out in the Kuiper belt, there's a chance that some of a little bit farther than the Kuiper belt, then the inner planets could exist.
Okay, so you could have the rocky planets in the middle.
Exactly.
That could theoretically survive. Okay. So it's not impossible to have a Tatooine style planet necessarily.
Exactly. So that's what I wanted to look up, going, how real is this? And then I can't remember, there was a Facebook post that the question of, could you have life on a rogue star? And so I went overnight, pulled up my simulator and started looking. And my conclusion is on a rogue star, rogue planet.
Oh, okay, rogue planet. So no rogue star, planet. Just a flying through space black planet.
Just a random rocky planet. And my answer was no. There's no way for a rocky planet out in without a star to get
space. Yeah, no light.
Can't get enough heat.
Yeah.
But if it was a moon orbiting Jupiter, theoretically it could if it was close enough.
Okay, so if Jupiter was a rogue planet and the other planet close enough,
one of the moons could have enough heat.
Okay, the moon could theoretically support life even if there was no star. That's interesting.
Exactly. I wrote a short story that was in Contact This with that concept.
Okay.
What would life be like on this planet with no that doesn't have it doesn't know what light is. It's all everything is dark
Ooh,
all
that's
the
kind
time.
of a scary one. It kind of lends itself to some, well, pardon the basically automatic pun, but that's a dark story. I mean, I can imagine something along the lines of something like Pitch Black or some monstrous thing like that happening. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
So I do a lot of those what ifs, and I try and make my gizmos and gadgets to make sense.
Yeah. No, what kind of gadgets do you have in this O'Neill book?
With I have there's a bunch of them. I have try not to release spoilers.
Sure. But what kind of tools does an espionage get use in the future as you envision it?
Well, there's the simple things like, there is, if you're a spy, you're going to need a disguise.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need different voices. So I went full Mission Impossible, right?
Yes. Okay.
Instead of having some type of plastic that he wears, it's a necklace that he hits and his face changes, voice
like
changes.
type thing, or
exactly, but something that's real enough that if you touch it, or flies at your face, that it'll land on the face.
I see. Okay.
Try and trick people, right?
Yeah.
And then it's always, the question of, well, do they have guns in this universe? And my question is, no, they don't have slug throwers. They shoot flechettes instead. They don't use gunpowder. They use magnets.
Neat. Yeah. So little tweaks as they go forward. It's not like you switch to lasers though, or like plasma weapons or anything necessarily.
No, I've thrown lasers out completely.
Well, I mean, lasers don't make a lot of sense as weapons, but I mean, the throwing energy at people is kind of a tried and true, if extremely unlikely, sci-fi trope.
Exactly. My belief with sci-fi gizmos is the more you tell your reader about the gizmo, the more it can go wrong and impact the story.
Yeah.
So if it's really important that the gun malfunctions in the climax of the book, then they should know exactly how it works.
Yeah, and how the character will need to fix it probably at some point.
Exactly.
If fixing is part of the story. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, so it's been fun having you, Nathan. Remind everybody again where they can find your book and what the name of that book is.
The book is Enlisted, the first book of Agent O'Neill Saga. It is available on Amazon.com, and you can find me on Facebook with the Nathan Pedde author, or on Amazon on my website, at nathanpedde.com.
And it's Pedde with 2 D's in the middle. Pedde. Yep.
Yes.
All right. And as for this podcast, you can find us at mentalcellarpublications.com. We're hosted by Libsyn. You can find my books on Amazon.com. And hopefully soon I'll be getting the paperbacks out to the wide distribution. So keep your eyes out for that. That's, so currently Demon Scroll, 10 Liars, and, Origin of Storms. I always have trouble remembering that last one. Those are my 3 main books right now. They're all big, long epics. 2 of them are fantasy, 1 science fiction. And thanks for listening, people. Go check out Nathan's book, and have a good week.
That tears it.